There is a power to the written word, a strength in the way moments are caught firm and held fast. It's a power of which we must be wary, for there is no telling what you might find in the prison of the printed page. No telling what specters wait to haunt us through paper and ink. Where and when will you find yourself under this familiar spell? Welcome to episode 5 of Not Now, Not Here. This week's episode is about a mysterious book. It's a simple book, plain and worn, and waiting to be found on a sunny afternoon. But the mystery isn't found in its comfortable cover, or the small script the book contains. The mystery is in where it has come from, why the book is waiting, and who the book is waiting for. So turn down the lights, close your windows and doors, and sit back. Prepare to enter a world that is not now, not here. Wood, wood, wood. On May 5th, in Burlinger Park, I died. Those were the first words in the journal Andrew found under the park bench. Burlinger Park was the biggest park in town. It was next to the fire station and had a baseball diamond, swings, merry-go-round, and lots of other equipment to play on. In the summertime, kids swarmed and ran in the sunny patches where the grass was short. In the cooler months, old folks strolled and sat on the benches under the big cottonwoods. Andrew found the journal one day when he was drawing pictures. It was a warm day, and the park was full of people, laughing and running. Andrew sketched dozens of them, taking careful note of how their hands, he liked hands especially, gripped the chains on the swings or the handle of the water fountain. He liked to think that his sketches froze each person's activity on the page of his sketchbook, making the scene his to remember. Sitting on the bench, he dropped his pencil, and when he leaned down to pick it up, he found the old, tattered journal. Its cover was brown and plain. It was filled from front to back with small pen scribbles, words for thousands of days, carefully logged. The words on the top of the first page were, "On May 5th, in Burlinger Park, I died." Andrew ran his finger over the tiny writing. Not knowing what else to do with it, Andrew brought the journal to his grandfather's house near the edge of town. His grandfather flipped through the pages thoughtfully. "Well, there aren't any names in it. Otherwise we could return it to whoever lost it." "What about the start of it?" Andrew said, pointing to the first page. "Whoever wrote this is dead." "They aren't really dead. It's just a story somebody wrote, a living somebody. No ghost can work a pen." His grandfather gave him a peppermint and told him to go back to the park to see if he could find the author of the journal. "Spent a lot of time working on it, whoever they are," he said. Andrew did go back, but instead of looking for the person who wrote the journal, he sat down on the bench and read the words written in it. "On July 11th, I would go to Nevada by train. I would visit my father there in his home. I would bring him a newspaper from back east. He loves newspapers from the coast. They remind him of his childhood. And on September 3rd, the weather would be cool and clear. I would meet a girl. She would be tall and bright-headed, and she would love bicycles." Wood, wood, wood. Everything was wood, a tense his English teacher would have called conditional perfect, a tense for things that might have been. None of the events in the journal had actually happened. They were all things that the person would have done, but never did. On October 1st, it would be cold. The sky would be dark and gray. We would kiss. Her eyes would be pale and wonderful. The journal was a whole life, a life that had never been. And through all of it, there were no names, no clues hinting at who had written the words. It was as if the author of the journal had purposefully tried to remain anonymous. Andrew read until the sun went down. When the streetlights came on, he walked home in the dark, thinking about his own life and what he would write in a journal, if he had one. Would there, someday, be tall, bright-headed girls, kisses, and trains? The moon was high in the sky when he got home. Though Andrew asked everyone he knew, he never did find the author of the journal. On May 5th of that year, the day the author said he died, Andrew decided to go to Burlinger Park and sit on that bench. "Let me know if you see any ghosts," his grandfather told him, chuckling. He sat at the park all day and into the night. He read the journal some, drew, and ate a tomato sandwich he'd packed. But he saw nothing other than the usual folks. At night, he walked home. He put the journal on a shelf in his room and left it in the back of his mind. It was almost exactly a year later when he found the journal again. He had been looking for a different book when his hand grasped its worn cover. Maybe it wasn't May 5th of last year, he thought. Maybe it was May 5th of this year. So again, he took the journal to the park and read it and waited. On June 8th, I would play baseball with my son. He would have a strong arm. At the end of our game, he would carry the bat and gloves home, and I would put the baseball in my jacket pocket. We would grill cheeseburgers for dinner. Andrew waited all day for anything. But again, nothing happened. That night, he went home, feeling silly and laughing to himself. At least it was a relaxing afternoon, he thought. Going to the park on May 5th became a tradition for Andrew. On that particular day, he would return to Burlinger Park with the journal. He went back every year when he was in high school, and when he got the job at the machine supply store, he still went back every year. The years passed, and almost before Andrew knew it, he found himself near retirement, living with his wife close to the park. By that time, he knew all the journal entries by heart, but he read them again every year regardless. Most of the entries he now thought of as his own. The journal was another life and another family that also belonged to him. And it was a good life, he thought. Whoever had written the journal had taken great care to construct a beautiful existence for himself, the kind of life a man would be proud to lead. A wife, a family, a good job. There was happiness and sadness, all packed into brief excerpts of days. When Andrew held the journal in his hands and felt its aged, wrinkling cover, he was reminded of how brief life could be. It made him thankful. His wife made him his tomato sandwiches now and packed them, along with peppermints, in his lunch pail each year. She didn't understand why Andrew always went to the park alone on May 5th. "You could really use some company," she told him. "It's no good to sit alone all day, and it's not safe. The park isn't the same as it was when you were young." "Don't worry," he told his wife, giving her a patient kiss. The evening of his last May 5th visit to the park, Andrew read the journal again, and when he finished, he closed the book and felt its familiar, comfortable cover. As he stood up, he felt a sudden sharp point in his back and heard a man's deep voice saying, "Your money." Without thinking, Andrew swung the journal and hit the man with it. At the same time, he grabbed the man's arm and tried to wrestle the knife away. They struggled against each other for a desperate moment, both trying to control the handle of the knife. They fell, the stranger grunting and releasing air like a leaking balloon. When Andrew rolled away, he saw the knife sticking out of the stranger's side. The stranger was just a kid, not even 18 years old. His eyes were wide with fear under the yellow glow of the street lamp. But he wasn't looking at Andrew. He was looking at the journal. How did you get my... The journal had fallen where Andrew dropped it, under the bench. The stranger reached for it, his fingers almost touching it. With his arm outstretched, the stranger lay dying, his eyes fixed to the last on the journal. His hands, reaching to reclaim it, went limp. Andrew looked at his fingers. I could draw those hands, Andrew thought. But it was a fleeting thought, gone as soon as it came. Andrew pulled out his phone and called 911. Death by apparent misadventure. Attempted robbery. Burlinger Park, 7:45 p.m. May 5th, the police determined as they began their preliminary notes. They weren't able to identify the stranger. He had no driver's license, no state ID. All they found in his jacket pocket was a blood-stained baseball. The police never found the journal either, attributing Andrew's insistence that there was a lost journal somewhere on the ground near the bench to the stress of Andrew's almost being robbed at knife point. The journal, however, was far away by the time the police finished their investigation at the scene, waiting far away on a warm day to be found. A whole life waiting to be taken. That brings us to the end of this week's episode. We hope you found it as wonderful to hear as we found it to make. Be sure to tune in next week for another mysterious installment. This week's episode features music by Kevin MacLeod. The songs Inexorable and On the Shore are used under the Creative Commons license and can be found at incompetech.com. If you have a project and you need scoring, or just want to hear some cool music, I strongly recommend that you check out Kevin's site. You can also visit notnownothere.com for more information about the music, including legal information and links to all the songs you've just heard. Other music was provided by jewelbeat.com, which is another great source for background music and scores. They've got a huge selection and are also wonderful if you need music for any projects you are working on. This podcast is written and performed by Phillip Kohtz. If you like any of the stories you hear on the show, you can read them or download them for free online. You can find all the stories published in a variety of digital formats, corresponding artwork, poetry, our blog, and also news about future releases at notnownothere.com. You can also find us on Twitter and probably other places. We don't know, we're new at this. If you like what we're doing, please spread the word and be sure to stop by our site and give us your feedback. We'd love to hear your thoughts, opinions, criticisms, and ideas. Until next week, kind listeners, it's time to return to the now and the here. May the winds be ever at your back.